And welcome back to Stories from the River. This is your host, Charlie Malouf. Welcome to episode 349. I'm going to bring on America's favorite head coach, Stacey McCormick. Buckle up. We're going to talk about the VIP Summit.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Okay, Stacey, welcome back to the pod.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
Man, I am too. Hey, that pullover looks good on you.
Hey, I don't even know how I got it. It just showed up on my desk, but it is. The MMX team always rocks it out, and the awards gala swag is phenomenal.
Well, there's only a select few of those. I had one of those as well, and they're some of the award winners got them. I'm glad you got one, well deserved. And so, hey, we're here on episode 349. Stacey, our broadcast studio is not quite ready yet. I can't wait for it to be ready at the mill. So you and I are going virtual today. Might be one of the last virtual episodes we have here on Riverside. And but anyways, I think your return guest and your first time going virtual with me here on the pod. But we're 4 weeks removed from a VIP summit we held over 3 days, January 28th, 29th, and 30th. Is that about right?
That's correct. Yep.
In Fort Mill, South Carolina. So, Stacey, I got to talk a little bit about this topic last week, from the planning and the logistics and everything with Heather and Emmeline and Debbie. But from your perspective, 4 weeks removed, I got a lot of questions for you on the VIP Summit. Let's just start with, how did it come about? Why did it come about? And why was it important?
I got to give you credit for how it came about. We were in a QBR, our quarterly business review with our partners at Synchrony Financial and our Synchrony, and here in Charlotte. And we were talking about how we could impact the business, and one of the things that you've always believed, and I believe too, is that the ultimate unlock in our business is consumer financing, and it's being able to give people. I think you put it we got to be able to empower people. I would have said solutions, give them solutions for buying, but I loved how you kind of term that, of empowering people. And so we kind of had a little bit of a brainstorming session sitting there with the team from Synchrony, who are phenomenal partners and help us in so many ways with this. And from there, it just kind of became, okay, this is a commitment. This is what we're going to go do. We've done sleep summits with great success, and it really increases engagement and gets our teams involved and gives them training and gives them community. And then we decided from there to say, hey, let's go take 2026, where we've got to go do $300 million, and let's go do what we can early and get our teams all kind of ammunition and get them fired up and get them excited about what this empowerment, this unlock, this solution for their guests can be. And from there, it kind of took on, okay, how does that look? And so obviously you got to spend a time with Emmeline and Debbie last week, and what a phenomenal job they did of getting it set up and getting the logistics of it done, and really transforming our Fort Mill campus to be able to handle over a 3-day period right at 400 memory makers through our doors in our meetings, in our somewhat limited meeting space. But man, it didn't feel that way. They did such a phenomenal job of everything. So it was a great and well organized event.
Yeah, they did an outstanding job. It's funny how these things, we get into these, we call them QBRs, quarterly business reviews, and we do it with some of our key partners. You always want to talk about the business and get together and talk about and brainstorm and take some time to reflect and kind of work on the business, not in the business, so to speak, And so it was like, parallel thinking to like the sleep summit. We've brought our people in for these sleep summits, and we've had great success with that. And some of those ideas percolated from QBRs. And so sitting there at Roosters in South Park with Synchrony and breaking bread and saying and looking at the stats and just knowing that this financing game it's intricate, it's delicate, it can be complicated to people who are new, and also it can be sophisticated for people who've been with us for several years, who may not have ever known. And, you call it solutions, and which is a very appropriate phrase for it, finding solutions for our guests. The way I've always kind of taught it, that you alluded to, was, hey, we're not in the judgment business, we're in the empowerment business. So as long as someone's not trying to, commit fraud, we want to give them the empowerment to afford beautiful home furnishings. This is, in the pecking order from a home, a car, your home furnishings, probably the third largest big ticket item. And, you finance your home, you finance your car, and you're probably going to finance your furniture if you want to make it affordable. And, even if you give Warren Buffett the chance to get 5 years interest free, he understands the time value of money. He'll probably take you up on that. So, it's like, well, that's why we call it the single greatest unlock to our business. And so the timing of this, Stacey, we wrestled with, well, do we do it in the spring in place of the Sleep Summit? Do we do it in the beginning of the year? And then we had a lot going on in January, but somehow you kind of settled in on late January, and then we were in between two storms, and then you kind of had to kind of figure out, well, do we pivot just a little bit or just a day? So talk about the timing and placement, and ultimately why January was the right call, in your opinion.
Well, I think, I guess I'll begin with the end, and that is the reason it was the right time was because we needed to get it done early. We obviously, having that impact, having that energy, having that education for our team so that they could go and put this in place early, so that we could get the benefit of it for the whole year. So I think that was number one. And yeah, we ran into some things. We kind of kicked around the idea of doing it in May, and it would have been effective then too. And it would have probably been the same execution because the execution was phenomenal. And we would have just lost 3 or 4 months, right? So I think that was great. Yeah. And the other thing that happened is, obviously, for the first time in my 38, 39 years, almost 40 years in this business, we lost 2 weekends to weather. We've never had that happen, and it was kind of unprecedented, where we had a kind of a snow and ice event in the end of the week before, towards the end of January, and then we ended up in the first week of our fiscal February, which would have been right by the day behind the last day of the summit, having a record snowstorm in our market. So and what it caused was the ice being on the ground earlier in the week. We didn't feel safe about having folks come out and drive over. Some folks coming from 2 and 3 hours away, hundreds of miles, in that early. So we pushed it a day. So we had it scheduled for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we ended up pushing it to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which, by the way, also is a testament to Emmeline and Debbie and that team, because it's hard to shift things. It's not just shifting people, which was hard enough, like shifting a full day of participants over close to 70 or 80 people, but it also was shifting all the vendors, shifting all the other things. So it was a lot, but it's perfect timing. It had to be done. It needed to be done when it was done, so that we could get the benefit of it for the longer part of the year.
Awesome. And let's talk about what it was. So 6 breakout sessions over 3 days. Now, that's 3 days is not one person staying for 3 days unless you were an instructor. So we offered 6 different classes, or a morning session or an afternoon session. And so we broke it up into 6 sessions amongst all of our 400 memory makers who were attending. And then what was the content? Like, what the titles, who presented what, why were those selected? And so let's talk about that a little bit.
When we talked in that QBR, there were some things that came up that were like things that I think we've always wanted to talk about and that we felt like would impact our business, but we never had the time or took the time. Maybe that's the problem, and maybe we didn't take the time to really get our teams locked in. And so there was an opportunity to talk about some things and to give some perspectives on the business that we had talked about and we have access to, and we kind of mention at times, but we never really did a deep dive into it for them. And then the other side of it is that we have primary financing or a primary partner like Synchrony, which is your best credit, your top tier credit folks, and then you have these near prime. This near prime, solution or ability to empower with Fortiva that has a solution for folks who might have a little bit of a challenge with their credit. And then we have these for the totally credit challenged and folks that may have fell upon hard times or had something go wrong with their credit or are trying to rebuild is our tertiary or lease-to-own programs. So what we did was we said, okay, what six topics, what six things could we talk about and could we include our partners with to really get the biggest impact, and how could we go about doing that? So the topics became, the first one, it's actually increasing the applications to traffic, which and really it's through the impact of pre-qual. I've been in this business for, like I said, 38, 39 years. Up until just about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, if you wanted to get someone approved for credit, you had to get them to fill out a paper app, and you had to get them to give you their social security number and know that it was going to be a hard hit on their credit, and you had to go through that, which that process, although I thought we did a really, really good job of it, was a little bit cumbersome for our guest and a little bit cumbersome for our team, right? So, and by the way, in a world where privacy is getting all of these things, personal identifiable information, all of the things around how those regulations, but also how people feel about giving you their information became like a challenge. So, but we've got this great company that we partner with called Versatile, and Versatile has a solve for that, and it's a pre-qualification process where a guest gives us their information, but we don't run their credit. It's not a hard hit on their credit, and we can tell them what their buying power is. And what we found was a large portion of our folks weren't actually leveraging it in the way that they should. So the first session is unlocking, getting more pre-qualification and getting more apps. And Versatile was our partner there. The other thing we decided to do, because this was born out of an idea that Carl had for a sleep summit like 3 years ago, where he brought in Jamar Ray and Holly White, a couple of our Broad River legends, and did like a peer panel where we were trying to get people to think about becoming an expert, and sleep is a big part of that. It was part of the Sleep Summit. It was probably one of the best rated sessions and best comments of the session that we had ever had at a Sleep Summit. And so we kind of wanted to leverage that, because people like to hear from people who are doing the work, people who are at their level, who are actually achieving these things. So what we did is we had a couple of folks that came in who were really great. Our sales manager of the year, Brian Fuller, was one of our peer panel experts. And then the store that had the highest cowbell or apps to traffic in the last year, Mitch Dixon, the manager of that store, were our expert peer panel from internally from Broad River. So Marlis gave some great information and some great insight. And then these guys came in with questions. By the way, the questions that we used were questions that we had asked for from the team. We did some early surveying of some of our top performers in VIP, but also of the whole entire. When we sent out the invite, we said, hey, we'd love to have your feedback on what you'd like to have covered. And we synthesized all that down to 3 or 4 main questions. And those are the questions that we asked the peer panel. And it really ended up working great. But so session number 1, pre-qual, and getting more apps. In other words, the top of the funnel, bringing more people into the process. Mm-hmm. And then the second session was increasing the balance of share of our finance business with 60 months. So 60 months no interest. What we know is that when someone uses 60 months no interest, a lot of great things happen. Number 1, our tickets get bigger. Number 2, though, the other thing we know is their payment gets smaller. And a lot of people don't have $6,000-8,000 sitting in their checking account in today's world. But they have great credit, and they have the ability to make a low monthly payment with no interest. So what we do is, again, empower them to have this opportunity, or provide that solution for them to have this opportunity. And what we did is we took and we found like the people in our organization who had the highest balance of share with 60 months and was utilizing it at the highest level. and Stephanie Burke happened to be one, and Sam Van Giesen another. Sam was not able to make it for a couple of the days, but she joined us on the last day on the panel. But and then Synchrony was our partner there, obviously as our primary lender. They came in, they gave some great information for 10 to 12 minutes, and then the rest of the time was question and answer for Stephanie and for Sam. And then the third session, these were all the early sessions of the group. We had Synchrony in that room as well. Michael Wilkerson and some of the other folks there with Synchrony gave a great presentation on credit line optimization. Really, it's same-day credit line optimization, which means we got $10,000. How do we help and empower the customer to get everything they need or more of what they need because they have this opportunity? And so we had some Broad River legends in there, Jamar Ray and Josh Stanley, who constantly and continually have their stores have some of the highest average tickets in the organization. So those were the first three sessions. Then we went into the second group of sessions, and those were around some of our other partners. So we had Fortiva, who is our near prime or secondary finance source. Nathan Morgan came in and did a great job. As a matter of fact, if you had like a Minty voted up type thing, they might have been the winner in what people said, like we got the most feedback and that people saw it. Because what people have seen in the past is I think they see secondary as being difficult. They get caught up in the APR, but what they don't realize is that a person who has to use near prime credit to be empowered to make the purchase, that think something that they need, they understand that that's where they're at, and Fortiva is definitely competitive in that space. But we also simplified it by just sharing something as simple as, hey, your payment is $60 $1,000. So for the HFC on the floor in real time, that's no longer confusing. When they have someone that gets there, it's no longer confusing. They can take and leverage that. And then we had, in that session, Josh Stanley again was there because his stores have traditionally done really well with secondary finance business. And then we had Ben Gamble, another Broad River legend that's on the floor. And Ben has always done a great job with secondary and tertiary, and because he just does everything he can to make sure that he gives that empowerment or that solution to the guest. Then the next session would have been increasing or unlocking the power of tertiary. So unlocking the power of our tertiary business, and that's third party or third lender, LTO, lease-to-own. And we had our partners from Qualify and our partners from Progressive who presented in that session to start the session off. And then we also had, in that particular session, we had Holly White, who constantly and continually has more tertiary business and LTO business than anybody else, another Broad River legend. And then also Troy Walker, who has a background before he joined the river in the LTO business, working for companies like Buddy's and some of those other folks. And so Troy, worked in a place where that was the primary way that they did business, right? And both of them did such a great job, along with our partners from Progressive and Qualify, to really kind of demystify some of the things, because as well as I do with tertiary, the biggest problem that we have is that our people don't either understand it, they see it as maybe not great for the guest or empowering the guest. They kind of see it in the opposite way. And then the other thing that they probably fail or believe is that it's really, really difficult and it takes too much time. So we demystified all of that for folks, talked about those solutions. And then the final session was really, we've got this great platform that we just, we've just launched this year called Podium. And what Podium is it's a customer contact platform where we can engage with guests through text, through voice, through anything else. But it allows us to really track our prospecting activity. We can track the people that we got into the system. We can track the conversations that are being had. We can do some great things in communication, like if you're talking to me and you call me and ask me about a specific sofa or group, I can take pictures of that. I can upload those to you. I can send you that information. And we know that in today's world, people are consuming more and more of what they do right here, right? And this is where they're at. This is how they're consuming, and this is how they're living their life. And Podium allows us to do that. And Dana Mallory has been central and integral in the launch and the kind of carrying the flag or the torch, if you will, for that program. And she was our presenter there. And what we presented was a way to take and say, okay, repeat rate, repeat purchase. We know that we probably don't have enough repeat business or people repeating as much as we would like. But what this does for us, especially in a tie-in with finance, is to take and be able to come in, Charlie, and say, okay, you got approved, Charlie, for $6,000 this day. You spent 3 of it. I'm sending you a thank you message, thank you for buying message after that transaction. And then I'm also saying, hey, Charlie, by the way, just making sure you know you still have $3,000 open to buy here at Broad River. I know that we talked about a new sleep system or adding that sofa or your next project of a bedroom or a dining room. Hey, remember, we've got a great sale going on and you still have this credit line that you can access. So that's kind of those were the 6 sessions, and every one of them provides an unlock. And really, I think they were positioned the way they were because we've always really chased cowbell, VIP, right? We ring the bell for a new app and we've got this tie-in and it's really powerful. And we still need to chase that. That's still super important. But what we've realized is the SPG, if you will, sales per guest, is our big metric in retail. The sales per guest of financing is financing percent of business. And even though we've seen a lot more activity in applications, we haven't really seen our financing percent of business grow in the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, probably in the last 4 years, it's actually kind of contracted or gone backwards a little bit. So we really wanted to lay into, okay, this is the top layer. The top goal is increasing our finance percent of business. But hey, by the way, here are all of our lead activities, lead measures, and things that we can go do that will help lift that up and for us to be able to get to where we want to be and increase that, which means we increase the amount of solutions and empowerment that we give to our guests, which means that we increase our business, which means that we all win together. It's a win-win-win.
Okay. A lot of fans or a lot of listeners might have to go back and kind of rewind this these last 12 minutes and listen to it a few times. There's a lot of gold there. Let me replay some of the threads. I'll go back to the beginning. This best practice of having the experts, the legends, the first ballot Hall of Famers. We've done that at the Sleep Summit. We even did that, back in Orange Crush years, predated your tenure a little bit. And those were always really well received, where you take those who are in the field doing it and let them teach it back out. And, when we ask these folks to do it, they love to come and volunteer and help the company out and help their fellow memory makers out. So that's a great best practice. This infusion of each one of our partners in this sophisticated space. You had one with Versatile, which is, let's understand the really force multiplier benefits of pre-qual. And so that was and let's demystify it and really embrace it. That's a great unlock. Then you bring in 2 sessions with Synchrony, like, hey, let's don't shy away from 60 months. It won't hurt your secret sauce. It'll actually can help your secret sauce. That's the phrase that we use. And there's so much power in it. And we're a little bit too conservative and leaning too much into 12 months. And there's so much more power here in bringing payments down and growing the ticket. And then this whole ticket optimization. And then you and so having this round robin in the first part, and these were fast sessions, right? We didn't really talk about that, but they're 35-minute sessions. And not only are they a little bit from the presentation, they go fast, right? So you're presenting from the partner, then you're having your experts, so to speak, or your legends speak, and curating, answering some of the curated questions, and then you open it up for live Q&A. And then we recorded all the sessions so we can use those internally for retraining and those who missed it. Not everyone was able to travel in, or we know that some people aren't with us who will join us later, in future months or years. We've got this content now curated to help for our onboarding and training and refreshing. And then you bring in, the second near prime, and bring in Nathan Morgan and Fortiva and our experts there. And then this tertiary, which, and you alluded to the credit challenge. It's the way I like to think about it is it's starting up or starting over, right? Because a lot of times it could be a college student who hasn't established any credit. And then you talked about also leaning into Podium, and someone might ask the question, why is it your CRM platform provider in a VIP summit? And VIP is our acronym, our program name for our financing program. Well, because there's so much potential in this repeat purchase opportunity, and really, the open to buy and leaning into the once they get the Ashley Advantage credit card, so to speak, and ultimately, the attack on our finance percent of business is because the rewards from other credit cards and other opportunities to pay are so competitive now, and the underwriting is such as it is. We have to we can't do the same things and expect the same results. We're going to have to kind of do a little bit differently because the cheese has moved a little bit to continue to grow our results. But it's ultimately a great thing for our guest, and to I like to say again. Wherever they are in their credit journey, there's a spectrum of where you are in your credit journey. But if you're a discerning adult and like you always talk about, Stacey, the number one buying decision is they came to our front doors and they know where they are. They didn't just stumble upon a furniture store. And so that's a clue. That's a buying decision. So what are we going to do with that? Well, let's show them what most people do. Let's unlock their buying power so they can kind of not be looking at price tags and kind of think about how will I pay it. No, let's invert that and say, hey, let's go have fun, because now we know what your buying power is at the beginning of your shopping journey. This is how most people do it. Let's do it quickly and easily without a hard hit to your credit. And let's don't make it, if you're afraid that because you have dings on your credit, we're not here to judge you. We're here to empower you, give you solutions so that you can have fun as a discerning adult, finding the furniture, mattresses, sleep products, and accessories that you need for your home. And so it's such a powerful session. Now, Stacey, 6 sessions, we got it in, and then we talked about we might do a challenge, and then we got into, we're still kind of coming out through we really wanted to ride the momentum afterwards and do some sort of tie it into the Olympics and an Olympic size challenge to keep the momentum going. And then we kind of had to get through the storm, and then we were like, we're going to do our President's Day challenge, so we can't kind of have them going simultaneously. Let's get through President's Day, and then we're like, we're almost through February. Let's get through that. So now you've got 4 weeks later, you've unlocked a Forge challenge with some Forge coins and some daily kind of driving it in. It takes 3 weeks to derive a habit. And so where were we from kind of, where are you seeing the momentum? And then talk about this challenge and where you see us taking us for the last 10 months of the year, starting with this challenge you're trying to forge forward with.
Great question. And let me kind of back up just a second to get there. So first things first is the other thing that happened as I was putting together, the sessions, how they would flow, what they would support, like the SPG of finance, right? And to have them all be what they needed to be. I also wanted to create and recreate, because it's been something that I've been wanting to do for a long, long time, and this was the perfect time, and it provided the vehicle to do it, is really recreate like the dashboards that we have. And we're working on that right now behind the scenes, but it was really to create a system that's scalable to where we can talk about our finance business from a different perspective than what we've talked about before. And it's going to allow us to be like empowerment minded and solutions minded, but it's also scalable because we can take it away and now we can teach it differently, and we can teach all of the impacts, not just the impact of cowbell, right? And so we can really get into how we can get better at each certain thing, because as you go and look location by location, you've got some stores who never use 60 months. You got some stores that do have a really low credit line optimization. We actually found that we've got some that's got really low credit lines because they're not asking for more, and therefore we're not getting more. So their optimization number might be bigger, but really and truly the impact is not as big. Then we've got some stores that that don't have hardly any secondary or tertiary business. And so it really gives us a scalable, measurable way to go find this out and to go drive it. And then so we walked away, and you talked about, like, how do we keep the momentum going, or how do we take this and it doesn't just stay in the room, right? And one of the things that happened is that very next day we have a snowstorm. So instead of coming out of that, everybody coming in on Saturday morning, we have a big meeting, we get everybody's feedback, we get everybody's commitments, we get everybody locked in on it. Well, we went into, oh my gosh, we can't open our stores, or we're trying to open a store and maybe we shouldn't have opened it, or whatever it might be. Like, people were worried about getting to work or not getting to work versus what they just learned. And so that creates a little bit of an opportunity, or a challenge, if you will, to what we're doing. So we come back in the next week, we got everybody coming in there. By the way, they're already behind on the month. Their mind's in different places. But it took us probably a week or two to get everybody kind of refocused and driving back on what it was that we learned. And we put it in front of our teams through questionnaires, through surveys, saying, hey, what did you learn? What did you get? What did you walk away saying, this is what I'm going to go change? And by the way, have you changed that? But then we kind of, like you said, you told the story. We made a strategic decision to kind of let February play out and see what happened. And by the way, from February the 2nd, the day after the storm, all the way through the end of the month, we had some amazing performance in our organization. We would say in those 2 weeks, we probably lost $3.5 million, and we made up over $1 million of that in that time period. So great job by the team. They're phenomenal. But then what we've been able to do now is come back and say, okay, take this contest. We've had basically a contest structure that we've ran that our team's kind of accustomed to, and we thought outside the box. I give Carl Hillisland, our Director of Retail Performance, credit. He knew that I would set up that contest probably the same way I'd set up some before, and a lot of it's, I'm a creature of habit, but he came in and he had a really, really, really compelling idea. And that compelling idea was to do a couple of things. Number one, to tie it to the word of the year, forge. So you tie it to forge. Forge is an amazing word. We're forged for more. We go into the heater. Iron sharpens iron. This is where we're at. We're forged for more. We're going to forge forward together. We are where we are. Let's go get this done. And then we take that, and the forge coins kind of had a little tie-in with the Olympics. We're just coming off the Winter Olympics, go USA hockey, right? And then we come out of that, and we've got these beautiful forge coins. And by the way, the forge coins were part of their presentation, Word of the Year presentation, when the team that he was on won Word of the Year. So him and I think it was Corey, Anita, and Lynn were the team that came up with that. What an amazing word, and what an amazing symbolism and symbolic things that they did inside of that really kind of got us across the line to say, yes, this is it. So we go into our contest planning, and the other thing that he did was he said, okay, we also need to tie it into VIP. We need to tie it into finance percent of business. We need to tie it into getting more apps or more pre-qual, and we need to let that be what drives the contest, because if that's driving the contest, that makes us interact with whatever it was, the content that we consumed. And it's brilliant. So we were able to go in, you and I kind of kicked it around after that, landed at a really good spot where we have this Forge Forward contest starting out the first 3 weeks of March, Moneyball March, our first Moneyball month of the year, win the Moneyballs, win the year. And so we've got our team locked in, and basically they have qualifiers to get these they get forge coins for accomplishing certain things, but they also have these qualifiers, and the qualifiers are around finance percent of business, or finance or cowbell percentage, or getting apps for the individual. And what's happened? Well, in the first 3 days, I would tell you that our apps to traffic has went from running about a pretty good percentage, 9.5, 9.75, to we're running 12% for the first 3 days of the month, right? And so we're seeing it. The first day we saw it big time in finance percent of business. The last 2 days, not so much. But I also know leading into the weekend, we probably have some of those folks that are already there that when they're going to finalize their business today or finalize their business on Saturday, and I expect to see it go up, and I expect us to get in that 47, 48, 49 range, kind of walk before we can run. And then as we do that, okay, what's the next thing? But we tied it in really well. The other thing that it did was it's really a daily contest that's ran over 3 weeks. And so they can only earn points on the day that they're in, and they can only earn them by doing the things that they need to do, which is get people engaged and empowered with finance and providing that solution.
Yeah, a lot of great content there. So we've got a plan to help us kick forward, and forge ahead with Moneyball March and take the learnings. And you were talking earlier about how sophisticated the business is, and you can go into a store and look at any of these 6 dials and see where they're kind of optimized or not optimized. You could drill down further and go down to the HFC level. Oh, wait, we have a brand new HFA, or we have 2 HFAs who are with us 90 days. And so here's where we got to pinpoint the learnings. Or maybe an HFA is really excelling because they learned the process the right way, but you have this HFP who's still kind of shying away from pre-qual or shying away from tertiary. So the tools to really manage the business and inflect the business for a positive change are there. The business intelligence will get more sophisticated. The training, the content's there. And now I think, and you just had your senior retail leadership team in for a day, and everyone made their commitments and where they're going to take this for the rest of this month and to finish out the quarter. So it was great to kind of see and hear some of those commitments. And this will be the single greatest unlock for our business. It'll help us go pursue 300 million and keep us maybe even forge for more, for 305 or 310 as we kind of go through the new profit sharing program for this year. And so I'm super excited where it takes us. And then I believe this will probably become an annual tradition. Hopefully we'll avoid winter storms again and not have that kind of friction. But I think it'll become an annual tradition for us. And so really excited that we got it done, and excited that we got all the insights and learnings and captured the content. And so I'll turn it over to you for final words. Anything that I didn't ask you, anything that you want to make sure that you comment on for as we talk about our VIP summit, its impact, the learnings, the insights, or maybe even some advice you might give to others in our industry as they're contemplating doing something similar, how to drive their business.
All right, Charlie, there's 3 people that I didn't mention who really actually helped this and kind of they were kind of like the room captains, but they became facilitators in asking the questions. And that is some folks with our people department, Rebecca Unruh, Brienne Dolphin, and Jennifer Abel. They were in the rooms, and they were the ones asking the questions and kind of leading the discussion when we moved to the question and answer sessions. And I want to make sure they get recognized because they kind of got put on the spot. They were going to be room captains, and then we made them be facilitators. And by the way, the first time was a little clunky, but after that, like if you were in there, like Rebecca Unruh was like, she was in her element. Jennifer Abel crushed it.
They did a great job.
They did, and so did Bree. Like they just like, and Rebecca Unruh, I don't think she'd been with us for like 2 weeks, and it's like she'd been here forever, So what an amazing job, and what great partners the people department was with this whole thing. They had other ambassadors around helping us and supporting us. Jocelyn and Heather and that team, and Renee, all do a great job for us, supporting us on our purpose of furnishing life's best memories. And really supporting the engine here of retail performance. So I'm super thankful for them. But, hey, look, what I would say is thank you to you for having this idea and kind of pushing a little bit. Like I didn't have to be pushed much, but, I can tell you alluded to it earlier that, January was busy. I believe we've reached a point in our company and the way we're growing and the scale that we are, where every month's busy. Everything's busy. The calendar is packed. There's not a lot of room anywhere to do things like this, especially in short cycles. But I can tell you, I appreciate that. I appreciate that leadership, because once we decided and once we got a hold of it, I just felt like the power of it would be really, really good. And I got more and more excited the closer we got, because I just knew that that it would impact our teams and it would educate. The first slide that I had when we started is, it says the Unlocking Your Success, the VIP Summit. But one of the things that I always say is product knowledge is the confidence from which we sell. So with product knowledge being the confidence from which we sell, what I found and what we found even during these sessions was that there's a lot of things that our teams didn't know that we kind of make the assumption that they know. And so knowing is so powerful, and they can go back now and they can go see these things and do these things. And I already see it on our company Voxer line and things of that nature. Hey, I got those folks, I got them the lowest payment was 60 months. And they ended up buying $6,000 or whatever it might be, or hey, I was able to take care of this nice couple who had to have a sofa because they were moving into a new place and their sofa blew off the back of their truck, and we did that through Qualify because they had some things go on. Like, those are the type things that you go back and go, okay, it's resonating on some level. How do we take it to the next level? And what I would encourage other retailers to do, especially you go into just about any retailer now, they know the power of the card. You get an opportunity to sign up for a card just about wherever you go. But what I would say is, especially even like to our peers here in the Ashley world, is actually look at this business a little bit differently, and more than just getting an application or more than just getting a sale. Like, go figure out how you can play chess, not checkers, with this part of your business, because it's going to have a massive return, and it's going to be the gift that keeps on giving. Because once they get in the system and we become theirs, like we become their place, and I love that. Professionals, we start to possess our professionals, right? So it's my doctor, it's my dentist. When we become my furniture store, or that person, that HFC becomes my furniture consultant or my furniture professional, then that's where the repeat rate comes from, right? And that gets our business on steroids, and it's just so powerful. So that would be probably my closing comments is don't always high spot everything. Sometimes what we do, retail is detail. We've got to get granular, and it's taught me a lot about a lot of things. I've been given a lot more quizzes. I've been sending a lot more questionnaires, because we've got to know what people know, and we got to know that they do know, and that's super powerful. So that would be it for me. And again, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the nudge.
Well said, Stacey. Couldn't say it any better. You can feel Stacey's passion on this topic, and I just look at for anyone else looking at this, we haven't always been great at really going back to the training. You get so busy and you just want people to do a good job. But I look at the investments we've made from Sleep Summit, from AFI boot camps, product knowledge, and then specific product knowledge in the sleep category, to now financing training and development. I had multiple people come up to me and say, in the sphere of so much training opportunities that we've had, say this is the absolute best training that they've ever had from Broad River at one of our events. So it was well orchestrated. Kudos to Stacey and your team, and Carl and Dana and every legend who kind of helped us out, and our partners, and definitely our people department. This would not have happened without them. So that's it from a chock full episode here, episode 349. From Stories from the River. We try to bring you fresh new content now every Tuesday, and then we have a few spotlights after those, and so we're retooling things, and we're getting it better here in season 5. Tyler and the comms team are taking it to a whole new level, and so thanks for leaving us your feedback or liking an episode, engaging, whether you see it on Reels or LinkedIn, or subscribing, and so let us know what else you'd like to see, and thanks for joining us. And catch us next week for episode 350 here at Stories from the River.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.